trust and reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. I bear witness that there's no being worthy of serving, worthy of observing, worthy of worshipping except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I bear witness that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the last and final messenger. I'd like to start off by thanking everybody for coming tonight, Saturday night in the masjid, and also I'd like to thank the board and the masjid for facilitating such a program. A disclaimer before we start: the flyer says Messiah, NetFlix versus Dajjal, Islam. What is fiction versus tradition, as I would say. The disclaimer is that I did not watch the series, I did not watch it, but what I will do is from the tradition, what we have from the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we will go over that. We find in the books of hadith, there are whole sections, Kitab al-Fitan, that have whole chapters talking about Dajjal and how this is one of the major signs of the Day of Judgment. So inshallah, our focus tonight will be based on what Islam teaches us, what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us about Dajjal and what we can do to prepare ourselves. So the overview for today's program, we'll be going over: number one, who is Dajjal? Number two, does Dajjal currently exist? Number three, has anyone seen Dajjal before? Number four, what are the attributes of Dajjal? What does the hadith tell us about Dajjal? And what are the things that will cause his appearance? What are some of the things that will happen before he arrives and before he starts his fitna? And what are the causes of moving on? I guess the projector is slower than the... Alright, bismillah. Moving forward. Number one, who is Dajjal? Dajjal is, number one, he is the son of Adam, right? He's a human being. Dajjal is a human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Dajjal is a human being, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him extraordinary attributes. He's a human being, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him extraordinary attributes which no other human being has. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use these attributes that He has given to Dajjal, and these will be used to test people. This will be a great test before the day of Qiyamah to test the people's faith. This is why every single prophet, including Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, warned the people about Dajjal. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us, along with every other prophet, warned us about the misguidance of Dajjal and the fitna of Dajjal. He also told us about the physical attributes of Dajjal. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his warning about Dajjal was detailed. Not only about what he will do, but also the physical attributes. So we can identify. Believers can identify, not only identify, but our belief in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and our prophethood and our trust in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that whatever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said was true. Because this is a long time after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam foretold us these things. Now why should we talk about Dajjal? Because number one, knowledge about something is better than ignorance. Knowledge about something is better than ignorance. We also see from the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sahaba, Huzaifa ibn Yaman radiyallahu anhu. When we look in the books of hadith, especially with fitan, where it talks about Dajjal, Huzaifa radiyallahu anhu was one of those who used to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in detail about the tribulations that will come before the day of Qiyamah. A lot of the narrations that we find, Hudayfa ibn Yaman radiyallahu anhu used to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about it, and his traditions, his narrations are the ones that we find in the book. And finally, the Dajjal is the greatest fitna, the greatest tribulation that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us about. There were a lot of tribulations and fitnas that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned the ummah about, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Dajjal will be the biggest one. Moving on to Dajjal, why is he called Masih ad-Dajjal? We know Isa alayhi salatu wasalam is also called Masih ibn Maryam. So why does Dajjal have a similar name? What does it mean? Number one, Dajjal is called Masih because his left eye is wiped out. He will not have anything, it will be covered. He will be blind in one eye. So he can only see out of one eye. Number two, it is said that he is called Masih because he will wipe the earth. What does that mean? Is that he will go from east to west in a very fast speed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the attributes and the different powers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give Dajjal, one of them will be is that he can travel with incredible speed. And they say that he will wipe the earth, he will make masa of the earth, and that's why one of the names, they call him Masih. He will be able to go everywhere from the east and the west. There are certain exclusions, and inshallah today we'll go over what that is. And the other explanation is that because it will be complete, one is that he'll be blind, the other one is that the skin will be covering it. So it will be like it's completely wiped out. Not only is he blind, but it will be completely wiped out and covered with skin. So that's the Masih part. Now Dajjal. Why is he called Dajjal? Now Dajjal is not actually his name, but it's because he causes Dajjala. Dajjala is confusion. He is someone who deals with trickery and fraud. This is what he will do. He will trick people, he will be very fraudulent, and this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use Dajjal to test and separate the believers from the disbelievers. Now, what are some of the claims that Dajjal will make? What are some of the claims that Dajjal will make? Number one, Dajjal will use his powers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him to claim that he will be the Lord. Right? So, and this is why it's a test, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we'll see further on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him incredible amount of power. And this is the power that he will use to try to confuse people. And this is why we have to talk about it and know about Dajjal and know the true attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah we will go over that tonight. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in describing Dajjal, the hadith is long. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that every single prophet from Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam till me warned their nation about Dajjal. But then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went ahead and he said that I will tell you something that the others did not tell you, and that is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Innahu awar, that Dajjal is awar, he is one-eyed, and your Lord is not awar. Right? So this is why it is incredibly important for us to distinguish and know from the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. All of these details are there, the teachings are there. We inshallah will go over some of them tonight. And as we said, he will have deceptive arguments. He will trick people and to try to follow him. He will trick people to try to follow him and deceive people. Now we look in the Quran. The Quran does not directly tell us about Dajjal. There are a lot of verses about the last day and the different signs. The Quran talks about Ya'juj and Ma'juj. The Quran talks about Isa alayhi salatu wasalam when he will come out. And the Quran talks about some of the signs, like when the moon split, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about when the disbelievers and the others used to ask him about the Sa'ah. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا. So the Quran talks about the different signs and other things, but the Quran does not directly tell us about Dajjal. But we find in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there is a lot of detail. The first hadith that we'll go over, and this hadith is in Muslim. The Sahabi says, Hudayfa radiallahu anhu says, that once they were sitting and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came. And they were discussing, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked them that, what is it that you are discussing? And he said that we were talking about the Sa'ah. We're discussing about the last hour, the time before the day of resurrection. Thereupon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam started giving them some detail. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam explained how the Sa'ah will not come until 10 major signs will come. And the signs are here. Number one, we have the smoke, the dukhan before the day of Qiyamah. Number two, we have Dajjal. And inshallah, we're talking about him tonight. And then we have the dabba. Number three is the dabba, the beast. The fourth one is the rising of the sun from the rising of the sun from the west. This will be one of the final signs. The descent of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. When Isa alayhi salatu wasalam comes, and we'll talk about what Isa alayhi salatu wasalam will do with Dajjal, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and finally the landslides and the big earthquakes that will happen, the three big earthquakes, and how everyone will gather in one place after that. So these are the 10 major signs, and from there we see that Dajjal is one of the 10 major signs that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us about. Another hadith which is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثلاث إذا خرجنا لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, once these three things appear, Iman will not benefit that person who previously did not believe. So this will be right before the end of time. Number one, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, طلوع الشمس من مغربها, when the sun will rise from the west. Number two, وَالدَّجَّالِ and Dajjal. And number three, وَدَابَّةُ الْأَرْضِ, and the beast of the earth, the dabba that will come out before the end of time. Dajjal will be the greatest fitna, the greatest tribulation that will appear and will face the earth. Imran ibn Hussein radiallahu anhu reports from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that between the creation of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam and the onset of the hour, so from the beginning of time, from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam till the end of time, there was no creation that will have any bad impact greater than the Dajjal. Dajjal will be the greatest trial and the greatest tribulation from the beginning of time till the end of time. We also have Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. He said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam one day stood up before the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, and he praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he glorified Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he started talking about Dajjal. And he said that, I want to warn you about him. And there's no prophet who did not warn his people concerning the Dajjal. But I should tell you something more that no prophet told their people about. And that is when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that he is A'war and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not A'war. Al-Nawas ibn Sam'an narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, it is something other than the Dajjal that I fear most for you. If he emerges while I am amongst you, I will deal with him, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was alive, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was there, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have dealt with him. But then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, if he emerges, so the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was telling the Sahaba that don't worry, as long as I am with you, I will take care of him. But if he emerges after you and I am not there, then each person has to deal with Dajjal by himself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of the Muslims on my behalf. The true Muslims, the ones who follow the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the different advices that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave, those who learned those who understood those, they will be protected, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect the believers. Now there are certain events that will take place before Dajjal appears. Rashid ibn Sa'd said that when this place in Persia, Astakhar, was conquered, a caller called out that now is towards the end of time, Dajjal has appeared. Sa'd ibn Juthama met him and said that if you had not said this statement, that Dajjal has not appeared, I will not have told you what I heard from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the Dajjal will not appear until people forget about him, and until the Imam stop mentioning him from the minbar. Now that we are talking about, there's a lot of people talking about Dajjal, it shows there is still some time. But right before the time of Dajjal, people will stop talking about him. This is why it is important for us from time to time to have such gatherings, to go over these teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, as we said earlier, that the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us a lot of detail on the characteristics of the Dajjal. There even mentions the physical attributes of Dajjal. Number one is that he will be short, and he will walk with his toes turned, and there will be a gap between his calves, right? So he will walk and his feet will kind of be round. He will have curly hair. Number three, his hair will be thick. This is the amount of detail that our hadith have about Rasulullah, about Dajjal, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us. He will be one-eyed. He will be blind, and his other eye will not function. And the detail goes that his eye that will function will be sticking out like a grape, right? So the one side will be covered up, and the other side, the eye will be out of the socket and it will be sticking out like a grape. He will be of a white complexion. He will have a white forehead, and written on his forehead will be the letters Kaf, Fa, and Ra. And this is something that only believers will see. And believers, when they see this on the forehead of Dajjal, they will realize that what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said was true. And it will strengthen their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And this is why we need to build that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because whatever we need, the protection is there. And finally, Dajjal will not be able to have children. He will have no children. Sorry, it says 2 children. Dajjal will have no children. The place where Dajjal will emerge from. The hadith Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu narrates, and this is very few ahadith are narrated from Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu narrates that Dajjal will emerge from the east. So the east of where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions were, east of that is Iran, and there's the area of Khurasan, and this is where Dajjal will emerge from. And also Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, and will be followed by people who will have hammered faces. Right? These are the people that will be with Dajjal. Then the reason why it's important to know where Dajjal will come from, we'll see in the story. The story of Al-Jasasa and the Dajjal. Tamim al-Dari radiallahu anhu, when he accepted Islam, he narrated a story to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard the story, Fatima bin Qais radiallahu anhu says that one day, after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam finished the salah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gathered us. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gathered us and said that Tamim al-Dari radiallahu anhu has just accepted Islam. And he narrates to me something that affirms what I used to warn you guys about. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to warn the Sahaba so much about Dajjal that one narration says that we would think that he is around the corner, we would think that he's behind the date palm. This is how much Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would warn them about Dajjal. So Fatima bin Qais radiallahu anhu says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gathered all of the Sahaba and he said that Tamim al-Dari radiallahu anhu wants to narrate a story to you guys, and this affirms what I've been teaching you guys about Dajjal. So Tamim al-Dari radiallahu anhu says that he was on a ship and they were facing very bad weather, and eventually they reached shore. And when they reached shore, they saw a creature. And Tamim al-Dari radiallahu anhu says that this creature scared everybody. He said that we could not tell the front from the back. This was a hairy creature, and it startled all of us. And this creature asked us that, and told us that, he first asked, who are you? And then he told us to go to the monastery. There's someone in the monastery that wants to talk to you. So Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu anhu, who was yet to accept Islam, him and those with him, they went to the monastery, they were scared. So he went there and he said that we saw somebody chained up, very scary looking. And Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu anhu says that we asked, who are you? And the chained up creature said that you came to my place. First tell me who you are. So Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu anhu explained that we are from Arabia. This would happen to our ship. We reached shore. And when we reached shore, this creature told us to come to you, and now we're here. And Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu anhu then asked him, tell me about yourself. So this creature that was chained up, this person that was chained up said that I am Dajjal. And then he started asking Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu anhu a series of questions. And some of them were, are there still dates in this area? Does this lake still have water? And they also asked, did that messenger come? And he said to Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu anhu that, do people follow him? And he said, yes, he does have a following in Medina Munawwara. And then Dajjal told Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu anhu that those who follow him, it is better for them. So from here it shows the story of this creature was known as of Al-Jassasa, the creature they met on the shore. This is why it says the story of Al-Jassasa. And the person they saw in the monastery was the Dajjal. So from this story, we understand that the Dajjal is alive and that he's waiting for the hukm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be freed. Indications that the appearance of the Dajjal is imminent and that the Dajjal will be released soon. Number one is that the small number of Arabs. It will be eventually, there will be a time. Shaykh narrates that she heard the Prophet ﷺ say that the people will flee from Dajjal in the mountains. So Dajjal, they will be trying to run away from him and they will go to the mountains. So Shaykh, she asked Rasulullah ﷺ, where will the Arabs be on that day? Rasulullah ﷺ said that the Arabs will be very few. So one of the signs is that the Arabs from Arabia, the people of Arabia, they'll be very few in number. Another sign is the great battle and the conquest of Constantinople, which is Turkey today. So this is that right now Turkey is in the hands of Muslims. It is still a Muslim country, but before the time, right before Dajjal comes out, it will be conquered again by Muslims. So it shows that there's still some time where it will go out of the hands of Muslims, and when it comes back in the hands of Muslims, that is when it will be that is when Dajjal will come out. So Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu said that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when Jerusalem flourishes, Yathrib, which is the old name of Medina Munawwara, will be in ruins. And when Yathrib will be in ruins, the great battle will occur. And when the great battle occurs, Constantinople will be conquered. And when Constantinople is conquered, when it will be back in the hands of Muslims, then the Dajjal will appear. Right? So one of the final signs before the appearance of the Dajjal is that Constantinople will come back in the control of Muslims. One of the qualities of Dajjal is that he will travel rapidly around the world. Some of the places that Dajjal will visit. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, and explaining all of the places that Dajjal will go, that there will be no city, that there's no city but that Dajjal will enter except Makkah and Medina Munawwara. Makkah Mukarramah and Medina Munawwara are the only places where Dajjal cannot enter. Anywhere else besides that, Dajjal will go. He will have his limited amount of time. We'll go over how long he will be here for. But in that short period of time, he will travel with rapid speed. And he will go all across the lands. Only these two cities, Makkah Mukarramah and Medina Munawwara, is where he will be unable to go. On the roads leading to Makkah Mukarramah, there are angels. The plague and the Dajjal will never enter it. So the city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are angels that are protecting the blessed city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So ta'un, plagues, and also the Dajjal will be unable to enter it. Now, when Dajjal, after he emerges, he will when he's denied access to Medina Munawwara, he will set up camp nearby in a swampy land behind Mount Uhud. Mount Uhud is right there close to the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So behind that, Dajjal will try to set up camp. Then Medina Munawwara will be shaken by multiple earthquakes. There were 3 earthquakes that will shake in the city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is when the hypocrites, those who disbelieve in their hearts but are in Medina Munawwara, they will come out. It will be the earthquakes that will shake out the disbelievers from the blessed city of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then Medina Munawwara will be purified. Dajjal will not be allowed to enter Medina Munawwara, but all of his followers, those who will end up following him, they will end up leaving the city of Medina Munawwara. Now, while Dajjal will be camped out behind Mount Uhud, while he will be camped out right outside Medina Munawwara, a young man will challenge Dajjal and will challenge his false claim and reject his fraudulent deceptions, right? So there's going to be a major incident where this young person will be the one who will challenge Dajjal with the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Going on to why every single prophet warned their people about Dajjal. What are the tribulations? What will Dajjal do? What are his fitnas? Number 1 is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him a lot of control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the control to the bounties of the dunya. And from amongst there, he will have rivers of water and mountains of bread. And why this is important is that this is the time, during the end of time, wherein food, water, these things will be scarce. And there will be this creature that will have these miraculous feats, and he will be deceiving people. He will be giving them this water, he will be giving them this food, and he will say, follow me. And this is why it's a deception, and this is why we need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection, and also to teach ourselves about Dajjal. Dajjal will appear at a time when people will be negligent of deen. People will start worrying about deen. The learning and teaching of deen will be stopped, and the people will be fleeing away from knowledge. Then there will be this big distance between Islam and the people. People will be turning away from deen. Though we have now, alhamdulillah, a lot of institutions and universities and a lot of lectures, but before the time, around the time of Dajjal, all of these things will be very minimal. People will be running away from that. And it will be this time when people are very weak. His arrival will be a tribulation. He will test people, and this is when the true believers and the disbelievers and the people who have some problem in their faith, some weakness in their faith, they will be distinguished. Right now we cannot tell, but it will be this tribulation of Dajjal that will distinguish between the believers. And Dajjal will claim with all of the power and the might that he will have, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him, he will claim that he is the Lord of the world. And people will actually follow him because of the struggles they're going through, and he will help them out. He will do these things that we'll talk about right now, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enable him to perform. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow him to do this, and this is how he will test people. One of the things that he will do is that he will have 2 rivers flowing. One of them is what will look like water, and the other will look like fire. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that when you see him, and when you see him showing you this, then opt for the one that looks like fire, because that is going to be what is going to be water for you and cool for you. And a lot of these things today, there's a lot of ways that we can understand them. One is that literally it could be actual rivers, but now we also have a lot of technology maybe that these things could have meant. We have maybe holograms that people can touch. Maybe he can do things like that. This is what possibly he can use. It doesn't have to be physical rivers, but maybe he can use these jets or something. This is ways that we should not only understand it to be literally, that they also have figuratively, things of deception. Hologram and things like that can be used to deceive people. And this is one of the things that Rasulullah ﷺ said he will do, is that he will have these rivers that he will make it seem opposite. And Rasulullah ﷺ told the companions and told us that when you see his river of fire, go towards that, because that is where there's going to be water for you, and that is where there's going to be coolness for you. The Dajjal will say to people that, what do you think if I kill this person and I bring him back? Will you have any doubts that I am the Lord? Do you have any doubts that I am the Almighty? They will say no. So Dajjal, this is one of the powers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him, is that he will kill people and then he will bring them back to life. And then they will say, by Allah, I have never been more sure about you than I am today. So the believers, the believers will, from the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will be able to identify, and this will strengthen their iman. But those who disbelieve and those who are weak in their faith, they will fall for this. Imagine if somebody kills somebody in front of you and brings them back. You will actually believe that this person has some great power. And it will be very easy to fall into that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. And the Dajjal will try to kill this believer who says this, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it such that he will not be able to do that. He'll also say to a Bedouin. A Bedouin is a simple person. He'll say to the Bedouin that if I resurrect your mother and if I resurrect your father for you, will that be enough for me to testify that for you to testify that I'm your Lord? Will that be enough for you to believe that I am your Lord? He will say yes. And two devils will appear in the image of his mother and father. So this is the deception of Shaitan, right? Shaitan will have these mighty feats and powers that he will use to deceive people. And then this shayateen will tell this person that follow him, he is your Lord. Right? So this is why it is important for us to go over this and be able to seek protection from Dajjal. How long will Dajjal stay? How long will this period of tribulation be? Dajjal will stay for 40 days. Now how this 40 days is distributed, they say the first day will be like a year. The first day of this 40 days will be like a year. The next day will be like a month. And then after that, one day will be like a week. So 1 year, 1 month, and then a week. And finally, the day will be like normal days after that. Now, what can we do to be safe from the fitna and the tribulation of Dajjal? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us a detailed description about his deceptions. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We also have we have the physical description from the hadith and teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What can we do to be safe from the fitna of the Dajjal? Number one, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not bring him during our times. But the other thing is to be firm on our deen and our iman and our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very important. Because as we talked about, one of the imminent signs, one of the signs before Dajjal is that people will be far from deen. The more we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more knowledge of deen that we attain, the more we practice, this will distance and this will indicate that it's still a long time before Dajjal comes. And to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, learn the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he gave his description, it was that Dajjal will be awar and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is awar. This is to tell us to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And finally, no one can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world. So when Dajjal, the great deceiver and the deceptor, comes and he tells people that I am the Lord, it is going to be 100%. It is going to be 100% false, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not physically seen in this world. Now, running away from Dajjal is obviously going to be one of the ways to go away from Dajjal. And Makkah Mukarramah and Medina Munawwara will be a place where Dajjal cannot enter, and that will be the first thing to do. Number one, the other thing is, when a person hears that Dajjal is there, they shouldn't try to go close by and try to see his deception. They should turn away. And this is the hadith of Abu Dawud, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, whoever hears of a Dajjal, to stay away from him, run away from him. For I swear by Allah that a man may come to him thinking himself to be a believer. The person will think that, no, my iman is strong enough, I can protect myself. But he'll end up falling into the deception of Dajjal because of all the different feats and the miraculous feats that Dajjal will have. Another thing that we need to do is regularly supplicate and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Especially in our salahs and after our salah, we need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us refuge from the trials of Dajjal. The Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, whenever one of you recites the shahud, whenever one of you guys after salah, supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika Allahumma inni a'udhu bika a'udhu bika min the torment of hellfire, min jahannam, wa min fitnati al-mahya wal-mamat, wa min fitnati masihi dajjal. This is the dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam advises, and we should bring this into our daily practice. The Quran is one of the greatest sources that we can use as protection, especially from Dajjal. From all tribulations, we have the Quran that we should recite on a daily basis, but especially for Dajjal, we can use the Quran. And we find in the narrations that anyone who memorizes the first 10 verses of Surah Kahf by heart and hears the coming of Dajjal, he will be protected by the evil of Dajjal by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission. So when a person learns the first 10 verses of Surah Kahf, this will be a protection from Dajjal. Some narrations say the last 10 verses. So each of us, we can learn the first 10 and the last 10 verses of Surah Kahf. Whoever sees him should recite these verses, right? So we should learn them and also recite them in front of Dajjal. This is what our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has directed us to do. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in this narration comes in Sahih Muslim, and those of you who live up to the time of Dajjal, to recite over him the opening verses of Surah Kahf. And these are the protection from his trials and from his fitnas. Now, finally, the death of Dajjal. How will Dajjal come to an end? When Dajjal's followers will increase in number and his fitna and his turmoil will spread, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow Isa alayhi salatu wasalam to come back. And Isa alayhi salatu wasalam will descend in Damascus, in Dimashq, and he'll come from the eastern minaret of the masjid, and the true believers will follow Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. And Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, along with the believers, will follow Dajjal. And while he is heading to Baytul Maqdis, while he's going to Jerusalem in the place of Lud, this is where Isa alayhi salatu wasalam will catch up to him. And when Dajjal will see Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, this is when he will know that his time is over. And it will be Isa alayhi salatu wasalam who will defeat him, and Isa alayhi salatu wasalam who will be the protector and the saviors of the believers at that time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the tribulations of Dajjal. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Anybody has any question? Although Shaykh didn't say any Q&A. If anybody has any, especially youth, if you have any question, any youth, they can ask you.
جزاك الله خيرا.